Do some research into how some foods are grown and harvested, and you'll find terrible things. We're not just talking about crops that aren't environmentally friendly, but also crops that are harvested by slaves, that make entire communities sick, and some that are the product of animal cruelty. In 2018, a consortium of agencies that included Oxfam and the International Labor Rights Forum released their Cocoa Barometer. It's a measure of the state of the cocoa industry on an agricultural level, and it's dismal stuff. Not only did falling cocoa prices mean farmers living in poverty saw their profits drop even lower, but there had been little to no success in stopping the widespread use of child labor. They estimated more than 2 million children were working on cocoa plantations in West Africa alone, and that's staggering. Here are some other numbers. According to one report, the living wage in the Ivory Coast is $2.51 per day, but cocoa farmers can expect to make around 78 cents. That's where the necessity of child labor comes in, and it's a heartbreaking situation for everyone involved. While some chocolate companies like Tony's have completely eliminated child labor in their production lines, others like Nestle are still working on it. Nestle implemented the child labor monitoring and remediation system, in which they're asking farmers to declare the child labor they're using so the community can help stop it. Is that really enough? Vanilla is one of the world's most popular flavors, and the good stuff comes from Madagascar. Real vanilla pods cost a surprising amount of money, and sadly, according to the research center Danwatch, the people growing and harvesting the vanilla aren't actually seeing much of the profits at all. They see so little of those profits, in fact, that most of the vanilla-growing communities in the Sava region of Madagascar live in terrible poverty and still rely on child labor to do a lot of the work. The weeks leading up to the harvest are often filled with starvation and uncertainty, with many families forced to take out loans with astronomical interest from the collectors who ultimately buy their harvests at a fraction of what it's worth on the global market. The International Labor Organization estimates there's about 20,000 children employed in the vanilla trade as of 2016. Bananas aren't like most fruit, and they're the result of what The Guardian calls a genetic accident in nature. They're all nearly genetically identical, and that means that they all have the same exact vulnerabilities to the same exact diseases. In order to keep banana crops healthy and productive, there are a ton of pesticides used on many plantations. The Environmental Working Group estimates there's an average of 35 pounds of pesticide used on every acre of banana trees. It's even administered differently than you might expect. Farmers will often put each bunch of bananas into a plastic bag and pump the pesticides directly into it. Since bananas are peeled before we eat them, the end consumer doesn't have to worry too much about the impacts of those pesticides. But those poisons are doing other damage. The chemicals have been found leaching into the environment and local wildlife, doing harm not only to the animals that live near banana plantations, but the people who work there too. The pesticides have also been linked to birth defects and brain damage in the workers and their families, with children living on and around plantations with high pesticide use suffering the most. You may think of the joy and flavors that come with every glass every time you pop the cork on another bottle of wine, but unfortunately, the realities of the wine industry should make you pause before you reach for the corkscrew again. In 2015, a 49-year-old woman named Paola Clemente died in the vineyards of Italy. The New York Times reported she'd had a heart attack, and her death brought a horrible practice to light: the slave labor behind many Italian wines. Her death sparked an investigation that resulted in the arrest of 6 people who were accused of transporting and extorting poor women so desperate for work that they would quietly labor under brutal conditions. They were forced to labor in the fields for long hours while being worked so hard that even in the hot summer months, they were afraid to drink water because they were trying to avoid asking permission to go to the bathroom. Anyone who was late or missed a day wouldn't be offered more work. And according to the investigation, Clemente was often teased because she was so tired and ill she would fall asleep in mid-conversation. Hers isn't the only death related to this industry that hit the news in recent years. According to The Independent, tens of thousands of people just like her work 12 and 13-hour days performing backbreaking labor for an average of about $30 a day. Demand for soy products has been on the increase, and according to the World Wildlife Fund, that's come with devastating consequences. Countries like Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Brazil produce an ever-increasing amount of soy, and they're turning more and more land into soybean plantations to keep up with the demand. That's causing a chain reaction of environmental impacts, beginning with the destruction of natural habitats of species like the jaguar. It's also increasing the amount of soil erosion happening, particularly around bodies of water. Those rivers and lakes are, in addition, growing increasingly polluted by runoff from the massive farms, which are also giving off considerable emissions. When a swath of savanna called the Cerrado was converted into soybean farms, estimates from the Brazilian government suggest it gave off greenhouse gases equivalent to more than half the UK's total emissions from 2009. There's social impacts too. Small farmers are being forced off lands that are being folded into massive commercial farms. Workers are being exploited for cheap labor, and native tribes who have lived on the land for generations are being threatened by the relentless deforestation.
Now we live in another world. My heart aches so much because this world has ceased to exist.
Avocados got really popular really quickly, and according to the Brown Political Review, Mexico had earned a profit of roughly $2.2 billion from avocados alone by 2016. That seems like it would be a great thing for Mexican avocado farmers, but the skyrocketing popularity of this creamy fruit has also gotten some unwanted attention from drug cartels looking for another source of income. Some estimates suggest that Los Caballeros Templarios takes in around $150 million a year from avocado growers, and their methods are simple. They approach farmers and simply tell them that if they don't fork over some cash, bad things are going to happen to them, their farms, and their families. Not all avocado farms are beholden to the cartels, although some estimates suggest they control about 10% of Mexico's orchards. Some communities have worked together to kick the cartels out, but others are still being forced to produce what's become termed as blood avocados. There are other problems too. Even as the cartels are burning orchards of farmers who don't pay, water resources are being absorbed into the industry. Huge patches of forests are being turned into croplands, and entire species are losing their homes. Most of the world's almonds are grown in California orchards, and according to Forbes, increasing demand for the product means that more and more land is being turned over to almond production. In 2016, they found that satellite images showed around 23,000 acres of land had been covered with almond trees. Unfortunately, 16,000 of those acres had once been natural wetlands. Around the same time, between 2007 and 2014, there was a 27% increase in irrigation, and in 2011, California was hit with a catastrophic drought. The magazine Mother Jones says it takes 1.1 gallons of water to grow a single almond, and the impacts of that are far-reaching. They found that farmers in the San Joaquin Valley dug a mind-blowing 2,500 wells in 2015 alone, in spite of the fact that since 2013, the incredible amount of underground water extracted and redirected toward crops, particularly almonds, has caused massive patches of sinking land. That's damaged roads, bridges, and other infrastructure, and it's severely damaged California's iconic forests, too. That all makes almonds a delicious, healthy snack with some catastrophic hidden consequences. In 2017, The Guardian reported on a problem that was as disgusting as it was widespread. Salmon farmers were fighting a massive problem: lice. Steel cages containing farm-raised salmon are ideal breeding grounds for sea louse, a tiny, many-tentacled creature that survives by attaching itself to fish and eating its way through the salmon's skin. It only takes a few lice to kill a fish, and not only are they widespread, but they spread disease and are resistant to control methods. Pesticides are used to try to control the lice, and farmers are forced to use antibiotics to stem the spread of disease through fisheries. The immediate consequences are entire bodies of water that are being contaminated with chemicals. British broadcaster Jeremy Paxman has called for the complete overhaul of the salmon industry, including more transparency when it comes to how salmon are raised, writing, "Salmon has long been sold on the prospect of cleanliness and health. The impression is fraudulent." Some have also called into question just how humane the practice of farm-raising salmon is, pointing to the cramped, crowded, and often disease and pollution-filled waters fish are forced to live in. When The Guardian interviewed Fernando Ramirez, leading agronomist at the National University's Toxic Substances Institute, he revealed something shocking. In order to grow pineapples, around 44 pounds of pesticides are used for every 2.5 acres. And that's just the start. The soil pineapples are grown in is often sterilized completely during a series of between 14 and 16 different types of treatment. It's all perfectly legal in Costa Rica, one of the world's major producers of pineapples. It's only gotten worse, and in order to keep up with demand while keeping costs low, massive plantations have resorted to employing armed guards to watch over crops and workers, making sure everything moves at a swift pace without interference. There are an estimated 17,000 armed private company security guards in Costa Rica alone. Those living near pineapple plantations have been forced to abandon traditional water sources in favor of water brought to them in tankers because of the high levels of cancer-causing chemicals now in groundwater. For many, it's not enough. Villagers can wait days for safe water or risk suffering from bone pain, vomiting blood, and blindness, in addition to the development of chronic illnesses that come from drinking water polluted by the pineapple industry. Strawberries are delicious, sure, but they're also regularly at the top of the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list. In 2015 and 2016, strawberries tested by the Department of Agriculture uncovered an average of 7.8 different types of pesticide on each sample. Around 20% of samples had 10 or more pesticides. And the worst offenders came with a shocking 22 different pesticides. Overall, they found 81 types of chemicals used. Some of those have been banned in Europe because they've been linked to causing cancer. And here's the thing: pesticides are applied at an average rate of 300 pounds per acre. And that's not the only kind of chemical that's applied to strawberry crops. Next, we need to talk about fumigants. Those are chemicals applied to dirt to completely sterilize the soil and kill microorganisms before they can kill the strawberry plants. But some of those substances were developed as chemical warfare agents. Some are even outlawed under the Geneva Convention. After these fumigants are injected into the soil, farmers cover their fields with tarps to keep the chemicals away from people. But unfortunately, those barriers don't always work. In addition to all those chemicals, there's also the human cost. When the not-for-profit publication The Conversation reported on California's strawberry industry, they found widespread problems that included low wages for workers, poor working conditions, and shocking water usage. Delicious, but costly. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more mashed videos about important issues regarding the food you eat are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.